10-year-old Rebecca Mitchell pressed herself into the corner of her bedroom closet, making her body as small as possible. Through the crack in the door, she could see her stepfather Frank's shadow growing larger on the hallway wall. His heavy footsteps shook the floor. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. "Rebecca, get out here." Frank's voice boomed through the small house in Portland, Oregon. The smell of alcohol seeped under the closet door. She knew that smell meant pain. It always did. She heard her mother Patricia's soft footsteps join Frank's. Rebecca's throat tightened. Maybe this time her mother would protect her. Maybe this time would be different. "Patricia, where is she?" Frank's words slurred together. "Probably hiding again," her mother said, and Rebecca heard something that made her blood run cold. Her mother laughed. It was a quiet, knowing laugh that said she did not care what happened next. The closet door flew open. Frank's red face appeared, his eyes narrow and mean. Rebecca's body went rigid with fear. She opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out. Her voice had learned long ago that screaming only made things worse. Frank grabbed her arm, his fingers digging into the bruises that were already there from last week. He dragged her out of the closet. Rebecca's feet scrambled against the carpet, trying to find traction. Her mother stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching. Not helping. Never helping. "Please," Rebecca whispered, the only sound she could make. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix anything," Frank snarled. He raised his hand, and Rebecca flinched, closing her eyes tight. But then something happened. A sound pierced the air, loud and sharp. A dog was barking outside, right beneath her window. The bark was deep and urgent, not like the neighborhood dogs that yapped at squirrels. This bark sounded like a warning. Frank paused, his hand still raised. "What the hell is that?" The barking grew louder, more insistent. Then came another sound, a firm knock on the front door. "Portland Police. We received a noise complaint. Please open the door." Frank's grip on Rebecca's arm loosened just slightly. His face went from red to pale. Patricia's expression changed from amused to worried. They looked at each other, a silent conversation passing between them. The knocking came again, louder this time. "We can hear you in there. Please open the door now." Rebecca's mind raced. The police were here, right outside her door. After 3 years of silence, after 3 years of hiding bruises under long sleeves and making excuses for why she could not play at recess, help had finally arrived at her doorstep. But would they see past her parents' lies? Would they believe a 10-year-old girl? Or would they leave her here to face Frank's rage after they drove away? The dog barked again, and Rebecca felt something shift inside her chest. It felt like hope, small and fragile, but real. Are children in your neighborhood suffering in silence while we look the other way? Share this story and let me know in the comments what you think should happen to parents who hurt their kids. Officer Daniel Brooks stood on the porch of the small house, his German Shepherd partner Rex at his side. The canine had been acting strange ever since they pulled up to the address. Rex kept pulling toward the house, his ears pinned back, a low growl rumbling in his chest. After 8 years as partners, Daniel trusted Rex's instincts more than most people's words. "I'm coming," a man's voice called from inside. There was shuffling, whispered words, the sound of furniture being moved. Daniel's hand moved closer to his radio. Something was not right here. The noise complaint had come from a neighbor who said they heard crying and shouting. Now the house had gone silent except for suspicious movement inside. Rex barked again, his whole body tense and alert. The dog was trained to detect drugs and explosives, but Daniel had seen him react this way only a few times before. Each time, they had found someone in danger. The door finally opened. A middle-aged man with messy hair and bloodshot eyes stood there, trying to smile. The smell of alcohol hit Daniel immediately. "Evening, officer. Is there a problem?" The man, Frank, blocked the doorway with his body. "We received a noise complaint from your neighbors. Mind if I come in and check that everything is okay?" Daniel kept his voice professional but firm. "Everything's fine. My wife and I were just watching TV kind of loud. Sorry about that." Frank started to close the door. Rex lunged forward, barking loud enough to make Frank step back. The dog had never acted like this during a routine call. "So, I need you to let me inside." My K9 is indicating there may be a problem. Daniel's tone changed. This was no longer a request. Frank's jaw clenched, but he stepped aside. Fine. But you're wasting your time. Daniel entered the small living room with Rex. A woman sat on the couch, her hands folded in her lap, staring at the television that was not turned on. She did not look at Daniel when he walked in. I'm Officer Brooks. Is everything all right here tonight? Daniel asked. Yes, officer. Everything is fine, Patricia said in a flat voice. Her eyes never moved from the blank TV screen. Rex pulled toward the hallway, whining now instead of barking. Daniel followed the dog's lead. That was when he saw her. A small girl stood at the end of the hall, her back pressed against the wall. Her brown hair hung in her face, but even from a distance, Daniel could see the tears on her cheeks. Hey there, Daniel said softly, kneeling down to be less threatening. I'm Officer Brooks. What's your name? The girl did not answer. She looked at Frank, then at her mother, then back at Daniel. Her whole body trembled. Daniel took a step closer, and that was when he saw them. Bruises. Dark purple and yellow marks covered her thin arm. Some were old, some were fresh. His stomach dropped. Honey, those are some nasty bruises. How did you get those? He kept his voice gentle, but inside, rage was building. I fell, Rebecca whispered, the lie obvious in her shaking voice. She's clumsy, Frank said quickly from behind Daniel. Always falling down, running into things. Rex moved past Daniel and sat next to Rebecca, leaning his warm body against her leg. The girl's hand slowly moved to rest on the dog's head. Rex looked up at her with soft brown eyes, and for the first time, Rebecca's expression changed. She looked at the dog like he was the first friend she had ever known. Daniel pulled out his radio. Dispatch, I need CPS at my location. Possible child abuse situation. Now wait just a minute, Frank started, his voice rising. Sir, step back. You and your wife need to sit on the couch right now. Daniel's hand moved to his belt. His voice left no room for argument. Patricia started crying. Not sad tears, but angry tears. You're ruining everything, she hissed at Rebecca. Daniel felt sick. This woman was supposed to protect her child, and instead, she was blaming her. The hospital emergency room was bright and cold. Rebecca sat on the paper-covered exam table, Rex lying at her feet. Officer Brooks had insisted the dog come along, and the hospital staff agreed after seeing how Rebecca calmed down whenever Rex was near. Dr. Helen Carter entered the room with a kind smile. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. She had seen cases like this before, too many times, but each one still broke her heart. Hi, Rebecca. I'm Dr. Carter. Officer Brooks told me you had a rough night. I need to check you over and make sure you're okay. Is that all right? She spoke slowly and clearly, making sure Rebecca understood nothing would happen without permission. Rebecca nodded, her eyes fixed on Rex. The examination took 30 minutes. Dr. Carter documented every bruise, every old scar, every mark that told a story of years of abuse. Her jaw tightened as she worked, but she kept her face calm for Rebecca's sake. Sweetheart, these injuries did not come from falling down, Dr. Carter said gently. I need you to know that what happened to you was not your fault. Do you understand me? Rebecca's chin trembled. My mom said I was bad. That I deserved it when I made Frank angry. Dr. Carter's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. Your mother was wrong. Children do not deserve to be hurt, ever, for any reason. You are not bad. You are a brave, strong girl who survived something terrible. A knock on the door interrupted them. A woman in her 30s with red hair and a warm smile entered. She carried a folder and wore a badge that said Child Protective Services. Hello, Rebecca. My name is Beth Anderson. I'm a social worker, which means my job is to help kids who are going through hard times. Officer Brooks called me because he was worried about you. Beth pulled up a chair and sat at eye level with Rebecca. Am I in trouble? Rebecca asked, her voice barely above a whisper. No, honey, you are not in trouble at all. But we cannot let you go back home right now. It's not safe there. So we're going to find you a place to stay where people will take care of you and keep you safe. Beth reached out and gently touched Rebecca's hand. Where will I go? Rebecca's eyes widened with fear. We have a wonderful foster family who takes in children who need a safe place. Their name is Peterson, and they live in a nice neighborhood not too far from here. They have a daughter about your age who I think you'll like. Beth opened her folder and showed Rebecca a photo of a smiling couple with a teenage girl. Rebecca stared at the photo. The people looked nice, but she had learned not to trust nice faces. Frank could look nice when other people were around. Her mother smiled in public. How could she know these people would be different? I know you're scared, Beth continued. And that's okay. You have every right to be scared after what you've been through. But I promise you, I will check on you every week. Officer Brooks will visit too. And if you ever feel unsafe, you tell me right away, and we'll move you somewhere else. Deal? Rebecca looked at Rex, who wagged his tail. She looked at Officer Brooks, who gave her an encouraging nod. She looked at Dr. Carter, who had tears in her eyes but was smiling. 3 adults she just met, and all of them seemed to care more about her than her own parents ever had. Okay, Rebecca finally said. Beth smiled. Good. Now, we need to go to the police station first so you can talk to a detective about what happened. I know that sounds scary, but I'll be right there with you the whole time. Then we'll get you some dinner and take you to meet the Petersons. Does that sound all right? Rebecca nodded. For the first time in 3 years, someone was asking her opinion. Someone was telling her she had choices. Someone was saying she mattered. Officer Brooks drove Rebecca to the station with Beth following behind. Rex sat in the back seat next to Rebecca, his head resting on her lap. She stroked his soft fur, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. At the station, a detective took her statement. It was hard to talk about the hitting, the yelling, the nights hiding in her closet. But every time she wanted to stop, Rex would nudge her hand with his nose, and she would find the courage to continue. The Peterson house sat on a quiet street lined with maple trees. The sun was setting, casting orange and pink light across the sky. Beth pulled into the driveway, and Rebecca pressed her face against the car window, looking at the blue 2-story house with white trim. A porch swing moved gently in the evening breeze. Flower boxes full of bright red and yellow blooms decorated the windows. The front door opened before they could knock. A woman with blonde hair and laugh lines around her eyes stepped out, followed by a tall man with kind eyes and a teenage girl with dark curly hair. You must be Rebecca, the woman said warmly. I'm Julie Peterson. This is my husband Tom and our daughter Grace. We're so happy you're here. Rebecca stood frozen on the porch steps, clutching the small bag of clothes the hospital had provided. She did not know what to say. These people were smiling at her like she was a guest they had been waiting for, not a broken kid who came with problems. Come on in, sweetheart, Tom said, his voice deep but gentle. Grace has been cleaning up the guest room all afternoon. She's very excited to have a sister around. Grace bounded forward, her energy making Rebecca take a step back. But Grace stopped when she noticed the flinch. Sorry, Grace said softly. I get too excited sometimes. Want me to show you your room? It's right next to mine. Rebecca looked at Beth, who nodded encouragingly. It's okay, honey. Go ahead. The house smelled like cookies and fresh laundry. Pictures of Grace at different ages covered the walls, along with photos of other children who must have been previous foster kids. Rebecca noticed that some of the kids appeared in multiple photos across different years. They had stayed. They had been part of this family. Grace led Rebecca upstairs to a bedroom painted soft green. A new comforter in bright blue covered the bed. Stuffed animals lined one shelf. A desk with colored pencils and a fresh notebook sat by the window. It was the nicest room Rebecca had ever seen. I know it might not be your style, Grace said nervously. Mom said we could repaint it any color you want. And if you don't like stuffed animals, we can put up posters or whatever you like. Rebecca walked slowly into the room, touching the soft comforter. This is for me. Yes, it's all yours. Your own space. Grace sat on the edge of the bed. I know this is scary. When I was little, before the Petersons adopted me, I was in foster care too. It took me a long time to believe this was real, and they weren't going to hurt me or send me away. Rebecca's head snapped up. You were in foster care. Grace nodded. When I was 7, my both parents had some serious problems. Tom and Julie took me in, and then when I was 9, They adopted me. Best thing that ever happened to me. Now they foster other kids short-term while also having me. They've helped so many children find good homes over the years. Something in Rebecca's chest loosened just a little. Grace understood. This family understood. Julie appeared in the doorway with a plate of cookies. I thought you might be hungry. Chocolate chip, fresh from the oven. Beth mentioned those were your favorite. Rebecca had mentioned liking chocolate chip cookies once during the car ride. And this woman had remembered. She had baked cookies for a stranger child who showed up at her door with nothing but trauma and bruises. Thank you, Rebecca said quietly, taking a cookie. It was warm and sweet, and it tasted like safety felt. After Beth left with promises to return in 3 days, the Petersons gave Rebecca a tour of the rest of the house. They showed her where clean towels were kept, which drawer had snacks she could take whenever she wanted, and where the family kept board games. We have a few house rules, Tom explained as they sat in the living room. No hitting or name-calling. Everyone does their own laundry once they are old enough, which you are. We eat dinner together as a family every night unless someone has a good reason to miss it. Bedtime on school nights is 9 o'clock. And the most important rule, if you need help, you ask. No question is stupid, no problem is too small. We're here for you. Rebecca waited for the other rules. The scary ones. The ones about what happened if you broke a dish or forgot to clean your room or talk back. But those rules never came. That's it, she asked. Julie smiled. That's it. We believe in keeping things simple. You've had enough complications in your young life. That night, lying in the soft bed in the green room, Rebecca stared at the ceiling. She could hear Grace's music playing softly through the wall. Downstairs, Tom and Julie were talking in low, peaceful voices. No shouting. No footsteps that made her heart race. No smell of alcohol. No mother telling her she deserved pain. Just quiet and safety and chocolate chip cookies that someone made because they thought she might like them. Rebecca pulled the blue comforter up to her chin and, for the first time in 3 years, she fell asleep without hiding in a closet. 3 days after Rebecca moved in with the Petersons, Officer Brooks showed up at the door with Rex. Rebecca was doing homework at the kitchen table when she heard the doorbell. Her body tensed instinctively at the sound, old fears rising up even in this safe place. But then Rex's familiar bark echoed from the porch, and Rebecca jumped up from her chair. Can I answer it? She asked Julie, who was making dinner. Of course, honey. You live here too. Julie smiled at her enthusiasm. Rebecca opened the door to find Daniel and Rex standing there with a large box in Daniel's arms. Special delivery for Rebecca Mitchell, Daniel announced with a grin. What is it? Rebecca asked, already kneeling down to hug Rex, who licked her face with joy. Well, when word got around the station about what happened to you, people wanted to help. Then the story spread to some local businesses, and then the neighborhood association got involved, and, well, things kinda snowballed. Daniel set the box down in the living room. Tom and Julie came in from the kitchen. More boxes were being carried up the walkway by people Rebecca did not know. A woman in a grocery store uniform. A man in a mechanic's jumpsuit. A teenage boy carrying a box almost bigger than himself. What's going on? Rebecca asked, overwhelmed. Portland takes care of its own, said the woman in the grocery uniform. Her name tag read Carol. I heard your story from my sister who works at the hospital. So I talked to my manager, and we put together some things we thought you might need. The boxes kept coming. Inside were clothes in Rebecca's size, new shoes, school supplies, books, art materials, toys, and even a bike. Everything was new, tags still attached, chosen with care. I don't understand, Rebecca said, looking at the pile of gifts. Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me. Carol kneeled down to Rebecca's level. Because every child deserves to be cared for. Because what happened to you was wrong, and we can't change the past, but we can make your future brighter. Because this is what neighbors do. A man stepped forward holding a large envelope. I'm Pastor Mike from Sunset Community Church. We heard you might need someone to talk to about what you've been through. We have a counselor who works with children who've experienced trauma. All sessions are free, paid for by the church. We'd like to help however we can. Rebecca looked at all the faces looking back at her with kindness. These were strangers who owed her nothing, yet they showed up with arms full of gifts and hearts full of compassion. "Thank you," she whispered, and then louder, "Thank you so much." The word spread further. The local library donated books and signed Rebecca up for free summer programs. A dental office offered free dental work after learning Rebecca had not seen a dentist in years. A hair salon gave her a gift certificate for a haircut and style. Grace helped Rebecca sort through everything that evening. They filled the closet with new clothes, organized the school supplies on the desk, and lined up the books on the shelf. "I've never had this much stuff," Rebecca said, running her hand over a bright red jacket. "My mom used to say we couldn't afford things like this." "It's not just stuff," Grace said wisely. "It's people showing you that you matter, that you're worth caring about. Don't ever forget that." Officer Brooks became a regular visitor. Twice a week, he would stop by with Rex after his shift. The dog had a calming effect on Rebecca that even Dr. Rachel Hughes, her new therapist, remarked on during their sessions. "Animals have a way of helping us heal," Dr. Hughes explained during their third meeting. "Rex doesn't judge you. He doesn't ask you to explain yourself. He just loves you, and sometimes that's exactly what we need." Rebecca started looking forward to those visits. She would tell Rex about her day, her worries, her slowly growing hopes. The dog would listen, his head tilted, his eyes understanding in a way that felt almost human. One afternoon, Beth Anderson arrived for her weekly check-in with news. She sat with the Petersons and Rebecca in the living room, her expression serious but not sad. "The trial date has been set," Beth began. "Frank and Patricia are both being charged. Frank with multiple counts of child abuse and assault. Patricia with child endangerment and neglect for failing to protect you." Rebecca's hands started shaking. The thought of seeing her stepfather again, of having to tell strangers in a courtroom about the worst moments of her life, made her stomach hurt. Julie reached over and took Rebecca's hand. "You don't have to do this alone. We'll be there. Beth will be there. Officer Brooks said he'll be there too. And the whole neighborhood will be supporting you," Tom added. "We've already started a prayer chain. You've got hundreds of people in this city lifting you up." Rebecca looked around at the faces of people who had become her family in just a few weeks. People who asked nothing of her except to let them care. "I can do it," Rebecca said, her voice stronger than she felt. "I can tell the truth about what happened." Because the truth was powerful. And for the first time in her life, Rebecca had people standing with her when she spoke it. The courthouse stood tall and imposing in downtown Portland. Rebecca sat in the back of Beth's car, staring up at the stone building. Her hands were sweaty, and her heart raced. Today was the first day of the trial. Tom and Julie sat on either side of her in the gallery. Officer Brooks was there in his dress uniform, Rex waiting outside with another officer. Grace had wanted to come, but Julie thought it might be too intense for her. Half the neighborhood seemed to be there too, filling the benches with supportive faces. Frank and Patricia sat at the defense table with their lawyers. This was the first time Rebecca had seen them since that night. Frank looked thinner, his face hard and angry. Patricia stared straight ahead, refusing to look at her daughter. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Linda Chen, had met with Rebecca 3 times to prepare her for this moment. She was kind but direct, making sure Rebecca understood what would happen. "You just tell the truth," Linda had said. "That's all you need to do. The evidence speaks for itself. The photos, the medical reports, the testimony from neighbors who heard what was going on. But your voice matters. Your story matters." The trial lasted 3 days. Rebecca listened to neighbors testify that they heard crying and shouting, but were afraid to get involved. She listened to Dr. Carter describe the extent of her injuries with clinical precision. She listened to Officer Brooks explain how Rex had alerted him that something was wrong. Then it was her turn. Rebecca walked to the witness stand, her legs shaking. The judge, a woman with gray hair and kind eyes, smiled at her. "Take your time, sweetheart," Judge Martinez said. "Whenever you're ready." Linda asked her questions gently. "When did the abuse start? How often did it happen? Did your mother ever try to stop it? Did you ever ask for help?" Rebecca answered each question honestly. Yes, Frank hit her almost every week. No, her mother never stopped him. Yes, she had tried to tell a teacher once, but her mother found out and coached her on what to say, so Rebecca said she had been lying for attention. The hardest part was when Frank's lawyer cross-examined her. He was a thin man with a sharp voice who tried to make Rebecca seem like she was exaggerating or making things up. "Children have active imaginations," he said. "Is it possible you misunderstood your stepfather's intentions? Maybe he was just trying to discipline you, and you perceived it as something more severe." Rebecca looked right at him, and she remembered what Dr. Hughes had taught her. "My imagination did not give me bruises. My imagination did not break my ribs last year. My imagination did not make me so scared that I wet the bed until I was 9 years old because I was too afraid to leave my room at night." The courtroom went silent. Several people in the gallery wiped tears from their eyes. Frank's lawyer sat down, having no response to that. Patricia's lawyer tried a different approach. He painted Patricia as a victim too, someone who was afraid of Frank and unable to protect her daughter because she was protecting herself. But then the prosecution called a witness that changed everything. Mrs. Chen, an elderly neighbor, took the stand. "I saw Patricia Mitchell outside many times," Mrs. Chen testified. "She would go to the store, go to work, go have coffee with friends. She was not a prisoner in her home. She had opportunities to ask for help, to call the police, to take her daughter and leave. She chose not to. And one time, I heard her through the open window. She was laughing while Frank was hitting that poor child. Laughing." The jury's faces changed. Whatever sympathy they might have had for Patricia evaporated. The prosecution rested their case with a powerful closing argument. Linda stood in front of the jury and spoke with controlled passion. "Frank Coleman is a man who used his size and strength to terrorize a child. Patricia Mitchell is a mother who betrayed the most fundamental duty a parent has, to protect their child. Rebecca Mitchell is a survivor who found the courage to speak up when a police officer and his canine partner gave her a chance. This case is not complicated. The evidence is overwhelming. These two people hurt a child repeatedly over 3 years, and they must be held accountable." The defense lawyers did their best, but the facts were undeniable. The jury deliberated for only 4 hours. "On all counts, we find the defendant Frank Coleman guilty." Rebecca felt Tom's arm around her shoulders as relief washed over her. "On all counts, we find the defendant Patricia Mitchell guilty." It was over. They could not hurt her anymore. Judge Martinez scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. As the courtroom emptied, Linda came over to Rebecca. "You were so brave," Linda said. "I've been a prosecutor for 15 years, and I've rarely seen a child handle testimony as well as you did. You should be proud of yourself." Rebecca did not feel brave. She felt tired and sad and angry. But she also felt something else. She felt believed. She felt heard. She felt like maybe, just maybe, justice was real. Outside the courthouse, news cameras were waiting. Officer Brooks stood in front of them with Rex. "Today, justice was served for a child who suffered in silence for too long," Daniel said to the reporters. "But this case should remind all of us to pay attention to the children in our neighborhoods. If something seems wrong, say something. Make the call. You might save a life." Rebecca watched from a distance, holding Julie's hand. She did not want to be on camera, and the reporters respected that. But she was grateful that Daniel was speaking up, that people would hear about what happened to her, and maybe, hopefully, it would help another child. That night, the Petersons ordered pizza to celebrate. Grace made a banner that said "Justice for Rebecca." It was silly and sweet and exactly what Rebecca needed. "What happens now?" Rebecca asked as they ate. "Now we wait for sentencing," Beth explained. "Then we move forward with terminating their parental rights permanently. And then, if you want, the Petersons would like to start the adoption process." Rebecca's head shot up. Adoption. Tom and Julie exchanged a look. "We were going to wait to ask you," Julie said softly. "We didn't want to pressure you or make you feel like you had to say yes. But we love you, Rebecca. We would be honored to make you a permanent part of our family." "You want to adopt me? Really?" Rebecca could not believe what she was hearing. "Really," Tom confirmed. "But only if that's what you want. No pressure. We'll support you no matter what." Rebecca looked at the three faces looking back at her with hope and love. She thought about the last few weeks, how safe she felt here, How Julie always made her favorite foods, how Tom helped her with homework every night, how Grace treated her like a real sister. Yes, Rebecca said, tears streaming down her face. Yes, I want to be adopted. I want to be a Peterson. Grace jumped up and hugged her. I always wanted a little sister. And for the first time in Rebecca's life, she understood what family really meant. 2 weeks later, the courthouse was once again filled with people supporting Rebecca. Sentencing day had arrived. Judge Martinez sat at her bench, looking down at the documents before her with a grave expression. Frank stood first. His lawyer had submitted letters from family members asking for leniency, claiming Frank had a troubled childhood and needed treatment, not prison. But Judge Martinez was unmoved. Mr. Coleman, I have reviewed your case extensively. The evidence shows a pattern of deliberate, sustained abuse against a vulnerable child. You used your position of authority to inflict pain and fear. There is no excuse for what you did. I hereby sentence you to 15 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for the first 8 years. Frank's face turned red, and he started to shout, but the bailiff quickly moved him toward the door leading to the holding cells. His voice faded as he was led away. Patricia stood next. Her lawyer had convinced her to show remorse, and she cried as she faced the judge. But Rebecca knew those tears. They were the same tears her mother cried when she wanted something, when she wanted to manipulate someone. They were not real. Mrs. Mitchell, in some ways, your actions are even more disturbing than Mr. Coleman's. You are Rebecca's biological mother. You carried her for 9 months, gave birth to her, promised to love and protect her. Instead, you allowed someone to hurt her repeatedly. You laughed while she suffered. The law recognizes that parents have a sacred duty to their children. You violated that duty in the worst possible way. I sentence you to 10 years in state prison. Patricia's crying grew louder, but Rebecca felt nothing. No sadness, no satisfaction, just emptiness where her mother used to be in her heart. Additionally, Judge Martinez continued, I am terminating both of your parental rights permanently. You will have no legal relationship with Rebecca Mitchell from this day forward. She is free to be adopted by a family who will actually love her. The gavel came down with a final, definite sound. Beth leaned over and whispered to Rebecca, It's over. They can't hurt you anymore. After the sentencing, a local lawyer named Richard Hayes approached the Petersons in the courthouse hallway. He was a tall man with silver hair and a warm smile. Mrs. Peterson, Mr. Peterson, I heard about your plans to adopt Rebecca. I'd like to offer my services free of charge to handle all the paperwork. I've been following this case, and I want to help make sure this little girl gets a happy ending as quickly as possible. Julie's eyes filled with tears. That's incredibly generous of you. Are you sure? Absolutely sure. Consider it my contribution to Rebecca's new beginning. Richard shook their hands firmly. The adoption process, which usually took months, moved quickly with Richard's help. He filed all the necessary paperwork, attended all the hearings, and made sure every detail was perfect. During this time, Rebecca started settling into her new life. She enrolled at Wilson Elementary School, where teachers had been briefed on her situation and gave her extra support. At first, she was shy and quiet, sitting alone at lunch. But Grace, who attended the middle school next door, would come over during her break to check on her little sister. Eventually, other kids started talking to Rebecca. A girl named Sophie invited her to join their jump rope game. A boy named Danny asked if she wanted to be partners for a science project. Slowly, Rebecca learned that not every person would hurt her, that some people were genuinely kind. Her friendship with Rex deepened. Officer Brooks brought the dog by twice a week, and Dr. Hughes incorporated Rex into some of their therapy sessions. The dog had a magical ability to make Rebecca feel safe enough to talk about the hard things. I'm angry at my mother, Rebecca admitted one day, her hand buried in Rex's fur. Is that bad? Dr. Hughes shook her head. It's not bad at all. It's honest. Your mother should have protected you, and she didn't. You have every right to be angry about that. Anger is a natural response to betrayal. Will I ever stop being angry? Maybe not completely, and that's okay. But over time, the anger will get smaller. It won't control you anymore. You'll be able to remember what happened without it taking over your whole day. That's healing. Rebecca thought about that. Healing sounded nice. Healing sounded like freedom. At home, the Petersons were patient with Rebecca's ups and downs. Some days she was happy and talkative. Other days she was withdrawn and quiet. They never pushed her to be anything other than herself. One evening, Julie taught Rebecca how to make her grandmother's famous chocolate cake. They measured ingredients together, cracked eggs, stirred the batter. It was such a normal, simple thing, but to Rebecca, it felt special. She had never cooked with her mother. Patricia had always told her to stay out of the kitchen. "You're natural," Julie said as Rebecca carefully poured batter into the cake pans. "Maybe you'll be a chef someday." "Maybe," Rebecca said, smiling at the thought. For the first time, she could imagine a future. Before, she could only think about surviving one day at a time. Now she could dream. The adoption hearing was set for a sunny Tuesday in June. Rebecca wore a new bright green dress that Julie had helped her pick out. Grace did her hair in 2 French braids. Tom wore a tie, which Grace joked he never did unless it was a very special occasion. The courthouse felt different this time. Instead of the heavy, scary feeling from the trial, there was lightness in the air. Beth was there, beaming. Officer Brooks came with Rex, who wore a special service vest. Dr. Hughes attended. Richard Hayes brought his whole family. Judge Martinez, the same judge who had sentenced Frank and Patricia, smiled when she saw Rebecca enter the courtroom. "Miss Mitchell, we meet again under much happier circumstances," the judge said warmly. The hearing was simple and quick. Richard presented all the paperwork showing that Rebecca's biological parents' rights had been terminated, that the Petersons had completed all home studies and background checks, that Rebecca had been thriving in their care. "Rebecca, do you understand what adoption means?" Judge Martinez asked. "Yes. It means the Petersons will be my real parents forever. They'll be my mom and dad legally, and Grace will legally be my sister." "And is that what you want?" Playing games. Adults chatted and laughed. Rex played fetch with a group of kids while Officer Brooks watched with a proud smile. Rebecca stood in the middle of it all, overwhelmed by the amount of love surrounding her. "What do you think?" Beth asked, coming up beside her. "I think I'm the luckiest person in the world," Rebecca said honestly. "No, honey. This isn't luck. This is what you deserve. This is what every child deserves. I'm just glad you finally have it." As the sun set over the park, casting pink and orange light across the sky, Rebecca sat between her new parents on a picnic blanket. Grace was teaching some younger kids how to do cartwheels. Rex was curled up at Rebecca's feet, content and sleepy. "Mom," Rebecca said, testing out the word. It felt strange on her tongue, but also right. Julie looked at her with shining eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. Thank you for choosing me." Julie pulled Rebecca close. "Oh baby, thank you for letting us choose you. You've made our family complete." And in that moment, surrounded by people who loved her, safe and protected and valued, Rebecca understood something important. Her past did not define her future. The pain she endured was real, but so was the healing happening every single day. She was not broken. She was not bad. She was not deserving of abuse. She was Rebecca Peterson. She was loved. And she was finally, truly home. The nightmares started 2 months after the adoption was finalized. Rebecca would wake up screaming, convinced Frank was in her room. Tom or Julie would rush in, turn on the lights, and gently remind her where she was. Safe. Home. With family who loved her. "It's part of the process," Dr. Hughes explained during an emergency session after a particularly bad week. "Your brain is processing trauma. These nightmares are actually a sign that you're beginning to heal, as strange as that sounds." "It doesn't feel like healing," Rebecca said miserably. "It feels like I'm going backward." Dr. Hughes leaned forward in her chair. "Healing isn't a straight line. It's messy and complicated. Some days will be better than others. The important thing is that you're not facing this alone anymore." To help with the nightmares, Dr. Hughes suggested several strategies. Julie bought a nightlight shaped like a moon. Tom installed a sound machine that played ocean waves. Grace let Rebecca sleep in her room when the fear got too bad. But the biggest help came from an unexpected source. One day, Officer Brooks arrived with news that made Rebecca's eyes go wide. "Rex is retiring from active duty," Daniel announced. He's getting older, and the department thinks it's time for him to have a quieter life. I was wondering if you might like to adopt him. Really? Rebecca could hardly believe it. Rex could live here with us. If your parents agree, Daniel said, looking at Tom and Julie. Are you kidding? Julie laughed. That dog has been part of Rebecca's healing from day one. Of course he can live here. Tom nodded. We'd be honored to give Rex a good retirement home. 3 days later, Rex officially moved in. He had his own bed in Rebecca's room, his own food bowls, and a collection of toys that Grace had bought at the pet store. The first night with Rex sleeping beside her bed, Rebecca did not have a single nightmare. He makes me feel safe, Rebecca explained to Dr. Hughes. When I wake up scared, I can put my hand on him and remember I'm not alone. School continued to be a challenge. Rebecca was smart and caught up quickly on the work she had missed during the years of abuse. But social situations were harder. She did not know how to act around other kids who had normal families. Their complaints about parents seemed silly to her. They whined about not getting the toy they wanted or having to eat vegetables. Rebecca wanted to shout at them about how lucky they were. Grace noticed Rebecca's frustration and sat her down one evening for a sister-to-sister talk. I get it, Grace said. When I first came to live with Tom and Julie, I felt the same way. Other kids seem so sheltered and ungrateful. But here's the thing I learned. Their problems are real to them. Just because we've been through worse doesn't make their feelings invalid. How did you get over it? Rebecca asked. I stopped comparing my experience to theirs. I focused on building my own happy life instead of being angry at them for not appreciating theirs. It took time, but eventually, I made real friends. Grace smiled. And now you're making friends too. Sophie seems really nice. Sophie had indeed become Rebecca's first real friend. They sat together at lunch, worked on projects together, and Sophie had even invited Rebecca to her birthday party. Rebecca was nervous about going, but Julie helped her pick out a gift, and Tom drove her to the party. At the party, surrounded by laughing kids playing games, Rebecca realized something. She was having fun. Real, genuine fun. Not performing or pretending, just enjoying being a kid. Trust was harder to build at home, even though the Petersons never gave Rebecca a reason to distrust them. When Julie said dinner would be ready at 6, Rebecca braced herself for it to be a lie. But dinner was always ready at 6. When Tom promised to help with homework, Rebecca expected him to forget. But he never forgot. Why are you always so nice to me? Rebecca asked Julie one afternoon while they folded laundry together. Julie stopped folding and looked at Rebecca with surprise. Because you're our daughter. Because we love you. Why wouldn't we be nice to you? Frank and my mother weren't nice to me, Rebecca said quietly. Julie set down the towel she was holding and sat on the floor next to Rebecca. Honey, the way Frank and Patricia treated you was not your fault. You did not cause their cruelty. Some people are broken inside, and they hurt others because they are hurting. But that's about them, not about you. How do I know you won't change? How do I know you won't start being mean? Because our love isn't conditional. It doesn't depend on you being perfect or never making mistakes. We chose you, Rebecca. We went through months of paperwork and hearings because we wanted you to be our daughter. We're not going to throw that away. Rebecca wanted to believe that. She was starting to believe it. Every day that passed without yelling or hitting or cruelty made the belief a little stronger. Beth's weekly visits became monthly visits as Rebecca settled into her new life. During one visit, Beth brought up something important. Rebecca, you're going to be 11 soon. That's old enough to start making some decisions about your future. Have you thought about whether you want to have any contact with your biological mother? Rebecca's stomach clenched. Why would I want that? Some children do. Some don't. There's no right or wrong answer. I just wanted you to know that if you ever change your mind, we can arrange supervised letters or visits. But it's completely your choice. Rebecca thought about Patricia, the woman who gave birth to her but never protected her, the woman who laughed while she was hurt, the woman who chose a cruel man over her own daughter. No, Rebecca said firmly. I don't want any contact. She's not my mother. Julie is my mother. Beth smiled. That's a perfectly valid choice, and we'll put it in writing. If you ever change your mind, even years from now, the option is there. But no one will force you. That night, Rebecca asked Julie something that had been on her mind. Mom, can I stop using Mitchell as a middle name? I don't want anything connecting me to them anymore. Julie hugged her. Of course, sweetheart. We can file the paperwork to legally change your full name. What middle name would you like? Rebecca thought about it. Grace. I want my middle name to be Grace, after my sister. When they told Grace, the teenager burst into tears. Really? You want to be named after me? You were the first person in this family I met, Rebecca said. You helped me believe I could be part of a real family. Yeah, I want to be named after you. By the time Rebecca's 11th birthday arrived, she was sleeping through most nights without nightmares. She had 3 close friends at school. Her grades were excellent. She laughed often and smiled even more. The scared, broken girl who arrived at the Peterson home 9 months ago was transforming into a confident, healing young person. The birthday party was small but perfect. Just family and a few friends. Julie baked Rebecca's favorite chocolate cake. Tom gave her a new bike. Grace got her a set of art supplies. And Officer Brooks brought a framed photo of Rex in his police vest, signed by the entire K-9 unit. As Rebecca blew out the candles, surrounded by people who loved her, she made a wish. Not for things or toys or money. She wished that every child being hurt right now would find their own Officer Brooks and Rex. That every scared kid would find their own Peterson family. That everyone would know what it felt like to be chosen, protected, and loved. The scars from her past would always be there, both the physical ones and the emotional ones. But scars were proof of healing. They showed that she had survived. And more than that, she was learning to thrive. 6 months after Rebecca became Rebecca Grace Peterson, the family gathered in the living room to open an envelope that had arrived from the state of Oregon. Inside was Rebecca's updated birth certificate. Under Mother, it listed Julian Peterson. Under Father, it listed Thomas James Peterson. It's official now, Tom said, his voice thick with emotion. Not just in our hearts, but on paper too. Rebecca held the document carefully, running her fingers over the printed words. This piece of paper said she belonged. It said she had a family that the government recognized as real and permanent. Can we frame it? Rebecca asked. Absolutely, Julie said, wiping tears from her eyes. We'll hang it right next to Grace's. But the certificate was just the beginning. The neighborhood had been planning something big, something that would show Rebecca just how many people cared about her story and her future. The surprise came the following Saturday. Julie told Rebecca they were going to a community picnic at Sunset Park. When they arrived, Rebecca saw dozens of cars in the parking lot and a large crowd gathered around the pavilion. Why are there so many people? Rebecca asked, confused. Grace could barely contain her excitement. Just wait. You'll see. As the Peterson family walked toward the pavilion, people started clapping. Then someone started singing For She's a Jolly Good Fellow, and everyone joined in. A massive banner hanging between 2 trees read Celebrating Rebecca, 1 year of hope and healing. Rebecca stopped in her tracks, overwhelmed. All these people were here for her. Pastor Mike stepped forward with a microphone. Friends and neighbors, 1 year ago, a brave police officer and his faithful K-9 partner responded to a call that changed a little girl's life. Today, we're here to celebrate not just Rebecca's adoption, but the entire community that rallied around her. Officer Brooks walked up with Rex, who was now retired but still looked handsome in a special collar with a bow tie attached. When I knocked on that door last year, I was just doing my job, Daniel said into the microphone. But Rex knew something was wrong. Animals have instincts we should pay attention to. Because of Rex's alert, we found Rebecca and got her to safety. Today, Rex gets to celebrate with the girl he helped save. The crowd applauded. Rex wagged his tail, enjoying the attention. Then came the gifts. The community had put together a college fund for Rebecca. Local businesses had contributed. Families had donated. Even people who had never met Rebecca but had heard her story sent money. The fund had grown to $15,000. Education is the key to breaking cycles, said Carol, the grocery store worker who had brought the first boxes of donations. We want Rebecca to have every opportunity to build the life she deserves. A local bookstore donated a full set of encyclopedias. An art studio gave Rebecca free classes for a year. The library presented her with a lifetime library card in a special frame. The gifts kept coming, each one chosen with thought and care. But the most touching gift came from Mrs. Chen, the elderly neighbor who had testified at the trial. She walked slowly to the front, supported by her daughter. "Rebecca, dear, I'm ashamed that I did not speak up sooner. I heard things, I suspected things, but I did not call for help until that night. I've had to live with that." Mrs. Chen's voice shook. "But I want you to have this." She handed Rebecca a small wooden box. Inside was a beautiful jade bracelet. "This belonged to my grandmother in China. It's supposed to bring protection and good fortune. I want you to have it because you deserve all the protection and good fortune in the world. And I want you to know that I will never stay silent again if I suspect a child is being hurt." Rebecca hugged Mrs. Chen, feeling the older woman's fragile arms wrap around her. "Thank you. And it's okay. You helped when it mattered." The party continued with food, games, and laughter. Children ran around playing tag. Adults chatted and shared stories. It felt like the whole neighborhood had become one big, extended family. Sophie and her parents were there. Sophie's mom pulled Julie aside and said, "Rebecca has been such a good friend to Sophie. We're so glad they found each other." Grace's friends came too, treating Rebecca like she was their little sister as well. One of them, a girl named Melissa, said, "Grace talks about you all the time. She's so proud of how brave you are." As the sun began to set, casting pink and purple light across the park, someone brought out a cake. It was enormous, decorated with flowers made of frosting and words that said, "Welcome home, Rebecca." Judge Martinez showed up for the cake cutting, still in her judicial robes from court. "I presided over your trial and your adoption," she told Rebecca. "Those are the kinds of cases that make this job worthwhile. Seeing you here today, happy and thriving, reminds me why justice matters." Beth Anderson was there with her family. Her own children played with Rebecca, and Beth watched with satisfaction. "You know, Rebecca, you're one of my success stories. Most of the time, my job is hard and sad. But sometimes, everything works out the way it should. You got the happy ending you deserved." As the party wound down, Rebecca stood with her family, looking at all the people who had come together to celebrate her. Just 1 year ago, she had been a terrified child hiding in a closet. Now she was surrounded by an entire community that had adopted her as one of their own. Tom put his arm around her shoulders. "How do you feel, kiddo?" "I feel lucky," Rebecca said. "No, not lucky. Blessed." "That's exactly right," Julie agreed. "Blessings don't always come easy. Sometimes we have to go through hard times to appreciate the good ones. But you're here now, and you're loved, and you have a future full of possibilities." Rex barked as if agreeing, and everyone laughed. Officer Brooks came over to say goodbye. "I have to head out for my shift, but I wanted to tell you something, Rebecca. In my 20 years on the force, I've seen a lot of bad things. But I've also seen a lot of good. You represent the good. You're proof that people can heal, that communities can come together, that love is stronger than hate. Don't ever forget that." "I won't," Rebecca promised. And Officer Brooks, thank you. For listening to Rex that night. For knocking on the door. For not giving up until you knew I was safe. Daniel's eyes got misty. "That's what we're here for, kid. To protect and save. And I can't think of a better example of why that motto matters." As the Peterson family drove home that night, car full of gifts and hearts full of joy, Grace asked Rebecca a question. "Do you ever wish things had been different? That you had a normal childhood from the start?" Rebecca thought about it carefully. "Sometimes. But then I think about how I wouldn't have met all of you if things had been different. I wouldn't have learned how strong I am. I wouldn't know how to appreciate kindness the way I do now. So no, I wouldn't change it. The bad stuff made the good stuff even better." "That's a very wise way to think about it," Tom said from the driver's seat. At home, they carried in all the gifts. Rex immediately went to his bed, exhausted from a day of attention and treats. Grace helped Rebecca find space for everything. Before bed, Rebecca did something she had started doing every night. She wrote in a journal Dr. Hughes had given her. Tonight she wrote, Today was the best day of my life. I have a real family now. I have people who love me. I have a future. I'm not scared anymore. Tomorrow, I want to start thinking about how I can help other kids like me. Maybe I can't change the past, but I can help change someone else's future. She closed the journal, turned off the light, and fell asleep with Rex's gentle snoring filling the room. Outside, the moon shone bright over Portland, watching over a girl who had survived the worst and found the best. A girl who learned that while evil exists in the world, so does overwhelming goodness. A girl who discovered that family is not about blood, but about choice, commitment, and unconditional love. Rebecca Grace Peterson was home, and she was finally, completely, beautifully safe. If this story touched your heart, what can you do this week to make sure no child in your neighborhood is suffering in silence? Comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of hope and second chances. 2 years had passed since Rebecca's adoption was finalized. Now 12 years old and in 7th grade, Rebecca walked through the halls of Portland Middle School with confidence. Her long brown hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she wore a bright blue jacket that Grace had given her for her birthday. She carried herself differently now, with shoulders back and head high. After school, Rebecca did not head straight home. Instead, she walked 3 blocks to the Portland Police Department headquarters. She had been volunteering there every Wednesday for the past 6 months as part of a youth outreach program Daniel had helped create. "Hey, Rebecca," Officer Martinez called out from behind the front desk. "The kids are already in the community room. They've been asking for you." Rebecca smiled and headed down the familiar hallway. The community room had been transformed into a safe space for children who were in the foster care system or had experienced trauma. Colorful posters covered the walls. Beanbag chairs sat in circles. Art supplies filled several tables. And in the corner, Rex lounged on his special dog bed, ready to provide comfort to anyone who needed it. 5 children sat in the room, ranging from ages 8 to 14. They were all in different stages of processing their own trauma. Rebecca knew each of their stories. She had been trained by both Beth Anderson and Dr. Hughes on how to be a peer mentor without overstepping boundaries. "Hi everyone," Rebecca said, taking a seat in the circle. Rex immediately got up and moved to sit beside her, his head resting on her knee. A small girl named Chloe, who had just been removed from her home the week before, stared at Rebecca with wide, frightened eyes. Rebecca recognized that look. She had worn it herself not so long ago. "Chloe, I know you're scared," Rebecca began softly. "I know everything feels confusing and wrong right now. But I want you to know something important. What happened to you was not your fault. And things can get better. I promise you they can." "How do you know?" Chloe whispered. Rebecca pulled up her sleeve, showing faint scars on her arm. "Because I was where you are. 2 years ago, I was living with a stepfather who hurt me and a mother who let it happen. I thought that was just how life was. I thought I deserved it. But then Officer Brooks and his dog Rex found me, and everything changed." The other children in the group knew Rebecca's story. She shared it regularly, using her experience to give them hope. But Chloe was new, and her eyes grew wide. "What happened?" Chloe asked. "I got rescued. I got placed with the most amazing foster family, who later adopted me. I got therapy. I got a community that supported me. And slowly, day by day, I healed. I'm still healing. But now I'm happy. Now I'm safe. And that's what I want for you too." Over the next hour, Rebecca led the group through activities Dr. Hughes had taught her. They drew pictures of their feelings. They shared one good thing that happened that week. They took turns petting Rex, who seemed to understand that these children needed his gentle presence. A teenage boy named Marcus, who had been in the program for 3 months, raised his hand. "Rebecca, do you ever get angry anymore? About what happened to you?" "Sometimes," Rebecca answered honestly. "Anger comes and goes. But it doesn't control me anymore. I've learned that anger is just a feeling, and feelings pass. What helps me is focusing on what I can control now, not what happened in the past." After the session ended, Officer Brooks stopped by to drive Rebecca home. This had become their routine. He would check on the youth program, spend time with Rex, and then give Rebecca a ride home while they caught up. "You're really good with those kids," Daniel said as they drove through Portland streets. You have a gift for this kind of work. I just remember what it felt like to be scared and alone. If I can make even one kid feel less alone, then it's worth it, Rebecca replied. Have you thought about what you want to do when you grow up? You'd make an excellent social worker or counselor. Rebecca had thought about it. A lot. Maybe. Or maybe I'll become a police officer like you. Someone who actually pays attention and acts when they see something wrong. Daniel smiled. We could always use more good officers. You've certainly got the heart for it. At home, the Peterson household was its usual warm chaos. Grace, now 17 and applying to colleges, was sprawled on the couch with her laptop, working on essays. Julie was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Tom was in the garage fixing a broken chair. How was the youth group? Julie called out when Rebecca walked in. Good. There's a new girl, Chloe. She reminds me of me 2 years ago. So scared, so broken. Rebecca dropped her backpack by the door. Julie came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. And you helped her feel less scared. I tried. I told her my story. I think it helped her see that things can get better. Julie pulled Rebecca into a hug. I'm so proud of you. You've taken your pain and turned it into purpose. That takes real strength. Dinner that night was filled with the usual family conversation. Grace complained about her calculus homework. Tom talked about a funny thing that happened at work. Julie shared gossip from her book club. Rebecca contributed her own stories from school and the youth program. This was normal. This was family. This was everything Rebecca never had before and now could not imagine living without. After dinner, Rebecca went to her room to do homework. Rex followed her, settling into his bed in the corner. The room had changed a lot in 2 years. The walls were now painted a cheerful yellow. Posters of her favorite bands and movies covered every surface. Shelves overflowed with books. Photos of Rebecca with her family and friends sat on her desk. One photo in particular always made Rebecca smile. It was from the adoption celebration party, showing her surrounded by what looked like 100 people, all there to support her. That photo reminded her that she was never alone. A knock on her door interrupted her math homework. Grace peeked her head in. Can I come in? Sure, Rebecca said, closing her textbook. Grace sat on the bed, looking unusually serious. I wanted to talk to you about something. I'm probably going to go to college out of state. Maybe Boston or New York. And I know you're going to be fine, but I wanted to make sure you know that I'm always going to be your sister, no matter how far away I am. Rebecca felt a lump form in her throat. She had not wanted to think about Grace leaving. I know. And I'm happy for you. You should go wherever feels right. You've come so far, Rebecca. When you first came to live with us, you were so quiet and scared. Now look at you. You're confident. You're helping other kids. You're thriving. Mom and Dad and I are so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you, Rebecca said honestly. You were the first person who made me feel like I could be part of a family. You taught me what a sister really is. They hugged, both girls holding on tight. The next week, Rebecca was invited to speak at a community event about child abuse prevention. She was nervous but agreed because she knew her story could help. Standing in front of 200 people at the community center, Rebecca took a deep breath and began. 2 years ago, I was a little girl who thought pain was just part of life. I thought adults were supposed to hurt you, that mothers were supposed to look the other way, that asking for help was useless. But then one police officer listened to his dog's instincts, knocked on a door, and changed everything. She told her story, carefully leaving out the most graphic details but still conveying the severity of what she had endured. She talked about the fear, the confusion, the self-blame. Then she talked about the rescue, the Petersons, the community support, and the healing. I'm here today to tell you 3 things, Rebecca continued, her voice growing stronger. First, if you're a child being hurt, it is not your fault. Nothing you did caused an adult to abuse you. That's on them, not you. Second, if you suspect a child is being abused, say something. Call the police. Call CPS. Knock on the door. Don't wait. You might save a life. And third, to everyone who helped me, thank you. Thank you for showing me what real love looks like. Thank you for proving that there are more good people in the world than bad ones. The audience gave her a standing ovation. Afterward, several people came up to thank her for sharing her story. A woman in her 30s with tears streaming down her face said, "I was abused as a child, and no one helped me. Hearing you speak gave me hope that maybe I can heal too, even at my age." "It's never too late to heal," Rebecca told her. "Find a good therapist. Surround yourself with people who love you. Give yourself permission to be angry and sad and all the other feelings. You deserve healing." That night, lying in bed with Rex snoring beside her, Rebecca reflected on how much her life had changed. She thought about Frank, probably sitting in a prison cell. She wondered if he ever felt remorse. She thought about Patricia, who had sent several letters that Rebecca refused to read. Julie had stored them in a box in case Rebecca ever wanted them, but Rebecca felt no need to revisit that part of her past. She thought about the Petersons, who chose her when they could have chosen any child. She thought about Officer Brooks, who listened to his dog and saved her life. She thought about Dr. Hughes, who helped her process her trauma. She thought about Beth Anderson, who advocated for her every step of the way. She thought about the community that rallied around a stranger child because it was the right thing to do. And she thought about the future. About high school, college, a career helping others. About finding love someday with someone who would treat her with respect and kindness. About maybe having her own children someday and breaking the cycle of abuse completely. About all the possibilities that lay ahead because she survived. Rebecca picked up her journal and wrote, "I used to think my story was about suffering. But now I know it's about surviving. It's about healing. It's about learning that love is more powerful than hate, that kindness is more common than cruelty, and that second chances are real. My name is Rebecca Grace Peterson. I am 12 years old. I am a daughter, a sister, a friend, and a survivor. And my story is still being written." She closed the journal, turned off the light, and fell asleep knowing that tomorrow would be good. Not perfect, because life was never perfect. But good, safe, full of love and possibility. The little girl who once hid in closets now walked in the light. The child who once had no voice now spoke up for others. The victim had become a victor. And that was the most beautiful transformation of all. Outside, stars twinkled over Portland, Oregon. In a quiet house on a tree-lined street, a family slept peacefully. A retired police dog dreamed of catching tennis balls. A teenage girl dreamed of college adventures. A mother and father dreamed of watching both their daughters thrive. And a 12-year-old girl who had survived the worst the world had to offer dreamed of a future filled with hope, purpose, and love. Because in the end, that's what mattered most. Not the darkness she came from, but the light she had found. Not the family she was born into, but the family that chose her. Not the pain of the past, but the promise of tomorrow. Rebecca Grace Peterson was home. She was healed. And she was, finally and forever, exactly where she belonged.